Max Jolliffe, it is a pleasure to have you on the Singletrack Podcast. How are you doing today?
Stoked to be here. Thank you.
It's pretty wild. I was going to tell you this offline, but I figured I'd save it for when we hit record. My introduction to you was maybe like a week or two ago. I was in like the Discover section of the Instagram algorithm, and it served me up a video of you kick flipping a skateboard in a pair of Alpha Fly 3s.
Yeah.
And then I, doing research for this episode, I get into like all the vlogs you have on YouTube, and I think you posed the question: is there any shoe you don't think you could do that in? I mean, you doing it in a super shoe is impressive, but where do you draw the line?
I think I'm the one and only person in history to ever do a kickflip in a pair of Alpha Fly 3s. I've never seen it before, and I don't think anyone's done it. But I would say, I mean, it was hard. It took me quite a few tries, but outside of like running shoes, like maybe a pair of high heels, I wouldn't be able to kickflip in. That's probably maybe the only shoe.
Wild. It was impressive. I mean, we'll link to it in the show notes. It was crazy impressive. But yeah, man, we got a lot of mutuals that we were talking offline. Matt Shapiro, Logan Williams. I don't know if the stars could have aligned and we would have both been there for Logan's fateful 2020 Tahoe Rim Trail attempt. But they spoke highly of you, and ever since I wanted to have you on the pod. I do want to get into
incredible human beings. Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. Did you meet them at Broken Arrow, or what was your intro to them?
Yeah, that was the first time I actually met both of them. Was my first ultra race at Broken Arrow. Had linked up with a couple of people from Satisfy, and they were like, "Hey, we're all doing this race in Tahoe called Broken Arrow. You should sign up." And I just like had FOMO that I was like, "I want to hang out with these guys." Like, yeah, I'll sign up for this ultra race. Like, let's do it, whatever. And I didn't really have any idea what I was getting into. And I met Logan, I met Matt, Molly, both Adams from Satisfy and Norda. And yeah, it was just like a really cool experience. So my first ultra race, like I think about that all the time, just like meeting all those guys. It was so cool.
Do you know Mo Lockhart as well?
Yeah, Mo was there too. He was shooting photos. Yeah, all
amazing.
Those boys.
Yeah, so basically your intro into the sport was like meeting the coolest people.
Yeah. I just somehow got lucky.
All right. I do want to get to background, but let's talk Moab 240 first. Just thinking about your motivations coming into this one. I know because I watched that cadence video that came out after your TDS.
Yeah.
You finished top 20, but like there's a comment that you have late in the video where I think you're sitting at an aid station and you're just like frustrated because you kind of acknowledge that you're like way off your potential. You're thinking about like throwing in the towel. Is that mindset top of mind going into this one, or is the distance so like mystical? You're like, I'm not even sure I can adopt a competitive approach to this thing.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I knew going into it, 240 miles is a whole nother beast. I knew I was going to deal with a bunch of shit, and I was planning on doing quite a bit of problem solving during the race. And I knew I was going to encounter multiple nights without sleep, fueling, foot care, like all these things that you can kind of get away with skimping on 100-miler. But TDS was just like a big test for me. And I kind of planned out my year as like a big build, like eventually all leading to Moab 240. And I just like during TDS, it was like such a hard race, man. It's the Alps are a beast. And where I come from, I'm from Newport Beach, Southern California. Like I'm from the beach. And it was just a totally opposite world of anything that I'm used to or from. And I was out of my comfort zone and dealing with tons of vert and altitude. And it was the first race where I really experienced like some serious adversity. And I'm like, I have pride in just never giving up, and just really able to tough it out and stick it out and finish races. But TDS was the first time where I was like, ooh, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to finish this thing. Like it was just like so hard. And I learned a lot from that, and I kind of carried some of those things with me going into Moab, and kind of experienced that, at an even greater level with Moab, just the difficulty. I mean, it was just so hard.
So you would say, like, looking back at the other races you've done, like the Saddles 50, Leona Divide, prior to TDS, it was mostly smooth sailing for you?
Yeah, I mean, Saddles, like, I just showed up there to help Mike out with the race. And I the night before, he was like, "Hey, do you want to run?" And I was like, I wasn't even planning on running. I didn't even have fuel or like I didn't have electrolytes. I didn't have anything. I just like brought my vest because I knew a guy in the 100-miler that I was like, "Hey, maybe I'll like pace him for 20 miles or something." And I pretty much just got thrown into saddles like less than 12 hours before the start. And I was using like some whatever Mike had in some tubs at the start line, some like expired hammer gels or whatever he had, and ran the race and ended up winning. And that was just that was my first ultra race win, like just pretty much a year ago. And I just kept the ball rolling, kept signing up for races, signed up for Sean O'Brien, ended up winning Sean O'Brien, running with Jesse Haynes, who won Moab 240 last year. And during Sean O'Brien, I'm just like picking Jesse's brain, like getting to know this guy, like trying to like soak up as much information as I can, because he had inspired me to sign up for Moab. And I hit the lottery and I was in, and I was like, dude, I need to like befriend this guy and try to like learn as much as I can to figure out what I'm going to do for this 240 miler. And then had signed up for Leona Divide, another 100-miler in April, and ended up winning that, set a 100-mile PR for myself, and just like trained so hard this year. I think I did the math. I ran like almost 5,000 miles this year, actually over 5,000 miles this year, training for Moab. And then after Leona, it was straight into TDS, just running a ton of vert, doing huge weeks. I mean, 130-mile weeks with 30,000+ feet of vert, just like big weeks, trying to do like as much as I could just to prepare myself for TDS. And then TDS is a month and a half out from Moab. So I was like, hopefully that'll just be a good test. It's like kind of a multi-night race. Like it starts at midnight and I ended at midnight. So I kind of got a multi-night simulation. Like I was up for, I think 36 hours or something. So it was like a nice little test of sleep. So I kind of just like planned out my year like really well in preparation for Moab. Yeah.
Okay, I made a note to come back to Jesse because that guy is a wizard, and I feel like he's in the same camp as like Jeff Browning when it comes to really picking apart the components of what make you successful at a race like Moab. So I want to come back to that. But just thinking about TDS for a second, do you feel like you needed to have that adversity experience midway through that race in order to do what you did at Moab this past weekend? Like what happens if you don't have that adversity moment in TDS?
I can't say what happens if I don't experience that, but I'll tell you, I definitely learned a lot about myself. Just there was a point, like maybe around the halfway point, maybe around the 100K mark, mile 60, where I came into this aid station. I think it was Beaufort. And it was this long stretch. It was a big climb. I had run out of water. I was coming down this downhill. I went out so fast. I was like trying to hang with the front pack, and I just blew my legs. And I was coming down this descent, and my legs were just giving out. I had to start walking the downhill. I couldn't run uphill anymore. I was just like defeated. And I came into that aid station. I was like, dude, I'm like, my race is over. Like, I'm not being competitive anymore. Like, it's just all these people had passed me. I was doing mental math in my head, trying to figure out like what place I'm in. I hadn't pulled my phone out the entire race. I didn't even bother to check, but I'm just like in my head trying to calculate like maybe what position I'm in. And like in my head, I was thinking like I'm maybe 50 or 60th place. And my girlfriend, I saw her at the aid station. I was just complaining and feeling sorry for myself. And she's like, hey, if you can't run the uphills and you can't run the downhills, then run the flats. Just like get out there. Like you're still racing. You're not going to give up. Like go. And I was like, all right. So I took off, and every time someone would pass me, I'd like lose energy. Like it took the wind out of my sails. And as soon as, I left that aid station, it was hot. I do really well in the heat. There was a climb. I started passing people, and like I started gaining that energy back. And it was just like so quickly the tides had turned that like I thought I was way far behind, and I start passing people and I start making up ground. And then coming into Les Contamines, the last crewed aid station, I was like, hey, what place am I in? Like, I just needed to know. And she was like, you're in 22nd. Like, and the last two guys just left the aid. Like, you could get top 20. Like, just get going. And it lit a fire under my ass, and I found a new gear, and I ended up making up a bunch of positions, and ran a solid rest of my race, and ended up digging deep and finishing top 20, which was like beyond my expectations. Like I was just really stoked that I was able to not give up and just stick it out, and ended up getting a result I was proud of. And there were like plenty of moments during Moab where I was like, I don't even mile 140, my legs were done, dusted. And I was like, I don't know how it's possible I'm going to move another 100, walk another 100 miles, let alone run. And I just ended up getting these sleep, just enough restorative sleep to like bring my legs back to just barely get me to the next aid station. And it was like that over and over, mile 140, 170, 200. Like I just like barely kept scraping by. And then we can talk more about just the crux of what happened during my race at mile 200 when I was down quite a bit from Harry, but I pulled off just a Hail Mary move and was able to get the win just miraculously. Like I couldn't even believe it.
For people that didn't follow the updates, I think your partner was putting out, I think it was around mile 120. She has you on record saying, I feel like I'm knocking on death's door.
Yeah. I was just amazing. Yeah, I was just so delirious, and like just the pain. I mean, I'm sure you know what it's like. I mean, in a 200-mile race, it was like I had so much pain that I wasn't even thinking about pain that I had 20 miles ago. It was just a whole new set of like my entire body was just hurting and depleted, and I was delirious and felt like I was nauseous. It seemed like everything was going wrong, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to drag my carcass another 100 and some odd miles. Like it just seemed impossible.
Yeah. Okay, coming back to Jesse for a second, and this is more for the audience, but like for those listening, for those watching, if you followed the sport in like the mid 2010s, Jesse was this model of consistency. Like if you were a betting person and he was on the line for Western States, you could just pretty much bank a top 10 there. He did it in his early 40s. He's in his early 50s now. He had that amazing battle against Jeff Peltier at Moab last year. So this is like 2 straight years of just like theatrics at this race, right? What stands out to you about, like, when you meet Jesse, what impresses you about him?
Okay, so the first time I ever met Jesse Haynes, I volunteered at Cocodona 2023, and I worked at the Fane Ranch aid station, which is the 100-mile aid station that Satisfied kind of sponsored. And we were there at night, and Mike came through in first, and then we were hanging out, and a bunch more of the leaders came through. I probably saw top 6 guys come through, and I think Mika was the top female. She came through, but I saw all these people coming through, and I was like, they just didn't seem like what I was expecting. Like to me, I was like, oh, these people are like kind of in shambles. Like everyone looks like they're hurting. Like obviously it's mile 100, like everyone is hurting at that point, but for some reason in my head I built these people up to be like superhuman or something. And I saw them and I was like, oh, they're just like regular people. But they're doing this thing, you know? And I think almost all those guys went on to finish. It like kind of inspired me to think like, oh, maybe I could like do some of these longer distance races. And I'd ran 100K at that point. I ran Black Canyon probably a couple months prior, and it just inspired me to sign up for my first 100 miler. So at the time it was called Samo 100. I think they later changed the name to Malibu Canyons 100 miler. It's on the Backbone Trail in the Santa Monica Mountains, and it was a race put on by Kira Henninger, Jesse's wife. And I signed up for this race, my first 100 miler, and we take off, and there's 2 guys up in front. I figure they're 100K runners. I'm running the 100 miler. I'm like, there's no way there's 100 milers going out that fast. And the entire race, everyone's like, oh, you're doing great. You're behind Jesse. And I'm like, who's this Jesse guy? And come to find out, it's Jesse Haynes. And the only time I saw him was at the 50-mile turnaround. And I had ran out of water, and I was like, hey, dude, how far is the aid station from here? And he's like, oh, you're almost there, just a couple miles. And that was the first time. That was my first ever interaction with Jesse. And I actually didn't even see him after the race because he had ended up beating me by like an hour and a half. But I got second place in my first 100 miler. And I was like, damn, dude, that guy's 51 years old, and he just like whooped my ass in a 100-miler. Like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
And then I did some research, and I'm like, oh, this dude's a weapon. Like, he's a legend. I mean, for almost 10 years straight, he finished like top 10 in Western States.
For sure.
Has ran Hard Rock a bunch of times, and I was like, I need to keep my eye on this guy. Like, he's just seriously a local legend here in Southern California. And I followed his year. He went on to run Hard Rock, which I think he had a tough race, but he finished. And then a couple months later, I saw that he was running Moab 240, and I followed the race and watched the entire thing. And he ended up winning just by a hair at the end, just the closest finish that we've ever seen in a 200-mile race. And it inspired me I was like, dude, him and Sally, both people who live where I'm from, in Orange County, which is not a place that's known for producing ultra runners. Both of these like local heroes like won Moab, and I was like, dude, I just need to do this race. I'm just going to sign up. And I signed up, and I hit the lottery, and I was like, oh shit, I actually have to do this thing now. So I just dedicated my year to just training my ass off and doing everything I could to prepare myself for Moab.
And how does he advise you? Like, what are some of his sticking points for how to approach this thing? So,
I mean, during Sean O'Brien, I was like, it was my first time I had seen him again since the Samo race. And during the race, like, we ran for probably 10 or 15 miles. And the entire time I was just asking him questions just about trying to get beta on the course of Moab. I was asking him about sleep. I was asking, fueling, nutrition, hydrate, like anything you can think of. I was asking. I was just trying to be a sponge and just soak up as much information as I can. And after that race, I did well. I ended up winning that race, but I got to talk to Kira, and I got to talk to Jesse, and I actually started a rumor that Jesse Haynes is my biological father, which I thought was kind of fun. When we both have long hair, we kind of have similar features. So it's, feels like could maybe be possible. But after that, I just connected with him, and we became good friends. And he just taught me a lot. Like, he's been an open book with just anything I want to know. He's always telling me about different races, like, hey, you should run this. Hey, you should run this. He knows my running style. And then during Moab, I mean, he was talking to Mackenzie, my girlfriend, who was running my entire crew. And he gave us so much information, so much useful information. And I mean, just pretty much every aspect you can think of, he's helped me out in some way.
For people that are largely unfamiliar with Moab, like, if you look at it on Strava, it's this kind of aesthetic single loop course. On the ground, practically speaking, like, is this a stunning course to run? Like, were you engaged the whole time? Do you feel like miles were clicking? Like, talk about that. Yeah.
It was incredible. I mean, that area of Utah specifically, it's in like, starts off in kind of the Arches National Park area. Like, Arches is like, the entrance is like a mile and a half maybe from the start line. So, I mean, just super beautiful red rock, giant walls. And then like 20 miles in, you're in like the Canyonlands area. So it almost feels like the Grand Canyon, just super beautiful. And the first night, I ended up running quite a few, probably like 20 miles with Harry Sumbertus. And we had just the most beautiful sunset. And it was like one of the most memorable moments of my, like, I will remember that forever, just sharing those miles with him and seeing that sunset. And the rest of the course, I mean, it's so you get everything there. It's like, to me, it's like the ultimate race. You run through desert, you end up running over 2 mountain ranges, you go over Shea Mountain, and then you end up in the La Salles. So that's like around mile 100, and around mile 200 you get some good climbing. There's just like so much different terrain, and it's actually really runnable. Like, a huge majority of the race is really runnable. And actually, funny enough, Andrew Glaze, another dude who's just like been super cool to me and super helpful. I mean, that guy, at the day before the race at the runner check-in, he gave me like a breakdown of the entire course, just like section by section from memory, for the 200 miles of it that he's ran. And he was like, dude, I know your running style. Cause I mean, I raced with him too. I ran Leona Divide with him, and he was just saying like, dude, I know your running style, like it's super runnable, you're gonna crush it. And then morning of the race, he shows up, he's like, you ready to win this thing? And I just kind of like laughed it off. I was like, yeah, maybe. But like somehow he knew. But yeah, the race is just incredible. And then finishing those last 18 miles from Porcupine Rim into the finish. I mean, the sun was coming up. It was like, I'll never forget that. Yeah.
And this is more for the audience too, just to kind of cue things up. But like you look at someone like Harry's had an incredible year, right? Like this was not necessarily in the bag to begin. Like he took down Jeff Browning in the final moments at Cocodona this year, Tahoe. I mean, like
wins Tahoe. Bigfoot,
just he has run the gauntlet of 200-mile races this year. He's a pro. He knows just as much as anybody out there at the top of the sphere. So I do want to get into like all like the mechanics of what you learned and stuff, but like going straight to that cruxy Hail Mary moment at mile 200, what transpires?
So me and Matt Shapiro, he was pacing me for here. I mean, like I was so prepared. I put together like an entire book for my crew with like a cheat sheet. So from Road 46 through Pole Canyon aid station to Geyser Pass, it was a 30-mile section, 8,000 feet of vert. So on paper, that's like the toughest section is getting to Geyser Pass. It's where the La Salle Mountains start. And I was with Matt, and the Road 46 section, which is like 14 miles, like getting to the base of the mountains. We were moving pretty well. I had just woken up, got some food in me, and we took off, and I was moving well, and we were making good time and having good conversation, and we were just having a good time. And Harry, I think he wasn't too far ahead of me, maybe a couple miles. We were within a decent distance of him. And then after Pole Canyon, we started like really getting into the mountains and getting into Geyser Pass or heading towards Geyser Pass. And the terrain was just so tough for me. I mean, we're talking like super steep climbs. I didn't run one single step in that 15 miles from Pole Canyon to Geyser Pass. Like not a single step did I run. I could barely pick my feet up, so I'm kicking every rock. There were downhill sections where it was like loose rock and dirt covered with dead aspen leaves, so I couldn't see what I was stepping on. There's roots. I mean, it was hellish. It felt like torture, and I was just in so much pain. And I'm falling over. I could barely stand up. I told Matt two different times. I was like, hey, I just need to lay down. And I took 2 5-minute naps in the dirt, which I'd never done before. But and that was like a trip, just falling asleep for 5 minutes and waking up and like fully having a dream. And I was like, thought an hour had gone by, and Matt's like, nope, 5 minutes, let's go. And we continued on. My watch was dead. He forgot to bring his watch. We only had one headlamp. His phone ended up dying. So we just had one phone and a headlamp, ran out of water. Neither of us had a filter. It was just like mistakes were made. And we pretty much just limped into Geyser Pass, and that section just took me so long. We got lost probably a mile off course, and when I finally got service, there was like 50 text messages from people like, "You're on the wrong track, like turn around." But we didn't have service, so no one was able to get a hold of us, and we eventually figured it out. And actually, around the same section, Harry got lost too. There's a lot of cow pastures, so course markings had been eaten or moved by the cows, and we got lost, and it was tough. It was the toughest part of the race for me, and I came into Geyser Pass just like defeated. And I always I see these 200 milers, and I'd see people DNF at mile 200. I'm like, how can you travel 200 miles and you're like so close to the finish and you just quit? I could not comprehend that in my mind. Like, how could anyone quit at mile 200 of a 240 or a 250? And like coming into that aid station, I was like, oh, I get it now. There's a chance that I might not even finish this thing. And at that point, I wasn't even worried about Harry anymore. I started asking about third place, who had been like 20 miles behind us for the entire race. And now this guy's like only 10 miles behind us. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I'm going to finish. And it was another one of those moments where I had come into the aid station and my legs were just so shot that I was like, I don't know how I'm going to move another 40 miles, guys. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And they just lay me down in the chair, the zero gravity chair. I leaned back, got the sleeping bag on me and the little sound machine that I had and my eye mask, and I just knock out for 40 minutes. And Mackenzie woke me up and I was like, I need 5 more minutes. So they let me sleep for 5 more minutes. And something really, really cool happened after that. So I woke up and oh, by the way, I brought a filmmaker with me. So two video guys. I mean, all of this is documented. We're making a film about it. But Tyler Wolter, the filmer and the filmmaker, he's done some stuff for Cam Haynes before. So just by surprise, I woke up and they're like, "Hey, we got something for you." And they showed me this video of Cam Haynes, and you can go on his Instagram and check it out. He posted it in his reels, but it was the most inspirational, just compelling speech. Like I was like shocked to even like see that like Cam Haynes on the screen, like he's talking to me, and he pretty much was just like, "Hey man, like I know what you're going through. Like I know how much pain you're in." I mean, he's a finisher of Moab 240, and he was like just talking about like, what do you want your legacy to be? You're right there. You're in second place of the Moab 240. Like, how are you going to write your story? Like this is it. Like, go for it, you know? And it was like the catalyst that led to just the miracle that I was able to pull off in this race. And I woke up and my mom fed me this like chicken quesadilla that was just like so good. I had caffeine tapered for a month, so it was like the first time that I had like a big cup of coffee. I had a little bit of Coke like the night prior, but I had no caffeine up until this point. I drink a bunch of caffeine, take a couple aspirin, drink a bunch of water. I get hydrated. I throw a different pair of shoes on. My shoes were killing me from the previous section, and Mackenzie. Matt was actually planning on continuing on with me, but Jesse had talked to Mackenzie and he was like, "Hey, Max needs to do this last section alone." And I really? understand why he said that now, but at the moment I was like, I didn't really understand like why they really wanted me to go alone. And Mackenzie just told me, it was like I didn't even have to make the decision. She was like, "Hey, if you want to finish first, you have to go by yourself on this section." And I was like, "All right." And Matt was sleeping in a chair, and I honestly kind of felt bad to wake him up. So I was like, I'm going. And I took off, and it was I started running out of that aid station. It was a slight climb up this like super nice dirt road, and everything, you know, as I ran quarter mile, half mile, everything started to loosen up. And I started feeling better, and I crested this little hill, and it was just like downhill from there, just a super nice gradual downhill dirt road. And I start moving better, and I start picking up the pace, and I hit this blacktop, and that's super nice running. And I'm picking up the pace. And then I finally look at my phone because it's the first time I get service, and I check the tracker, and Harry's 15 miles ahead of me, just leaving that aid station. And I had asked in the aid station, I'm like, "How far is Harry?" And they wouldn't even tell me, because I think like, I mean, so many people, I mean, even in my head, I had almost written myself off. Like, I don't know if this is a deficit that I can come back from. And since I finished, I've had so many people that talk to me, and like everyone like kind of believed that I could do it, but it was going to take like somewhat of a miracle for me to pull it off. And a lot of people were like, "Dude, like we saw you in second." I mean, second place would have been a great, an amazing finish that I would have been super proud of. But I think a lot of people went to sleep. A lot of my friends who were tracking the race, seeing that I was just down so big, and then everyone woke up and saw that somehow I was in first. And I was 5.5 hours behind Harry leaving that aid station. And at 15 miles out, he was almost to Porcupine Rim. So he was a couple miles out from Porcupine Rim, but I saw on the tracker that he was stopped moving 0 miles per hour. And I was like, okay, I know he stopped to sleep. I don't think he stopped in Geyser Pass. I think he pretty much blew through Geyser Pass. So that's how he was able to gain all that distance on me. And I was like, okay, he stopped. He's probably sleeping. Like, this is my chance to like move. And I got a hit of adrenaline. The caffeine started to hit, and it was like the stars had aligned, and like I was making my move, just like going for it. Hail Mary. I was like, this is it. This is maybe my one and only chance to win Moab. Like I got to just go all out for it. And, I was just moving really well on this dirt road, it was like 12-minute pace. And then I hit an 11-minute mile, and then I'm hitting 10s. And then like, by the time I'm like actually running at this point, like my legs are moving well, like all of my pain is somehow gone. And I'm just like, I'm flying, I'm floating. And, then I checked the tracker, and I'm 11 miles out, and then I'm 9 miles out. And by this point, he's at Geyser Pass, and I'm like less than 10 miles away from him. And in my head, I was talking to Matt. I was like, hey, if like going into the last aid station, if I'm like a couple miles out from him, like I'm just gonna grit my teeth and just hammer it to the finish. Like no matter what, I'm gonna run as hard as I can. Like that was kind of my plan. I was like thinking that it was probably gonna be almost a photo finish, like pretty similar to how last year played out. And I came into Geyser Pass, and I was like 5 miles out from him, and I saw on the tracker he had stopped again. I was like, dude, he must be like going through it right now. And I blew through Geyser Pass. I probably stopped for less than a minute, and there was a guy there. He was like, dude, Max, you're crushing it. Like you made up so much time. And I was like, dude, I gotta just go. Like this is my Hail Mary. Like I'm doing it. I'm going. And I was just like, the people in the aid station fired me up, and it was 5 miles. And then I was 3 miles away from him. And then I'm a mile and a half from him. And then I was like, holy shit. I think maybe I got this thing. And I was just running, crying, just in the dark, just crying, man. Couldn't believe it. And yeah.
I'm blown away that you did this section solo. I just think back to my own personal experience at Cocodona this past year. Last aid station, mile 227 Walnut Canyon to downtown Flag. That's like a 23-mile section, but you're going over Eldon. If I'm alone in that section, I mean, I like to think I would rise to the occasion, but I currently believe that I needed someone barking orders at me, setting the pace. Like otherwise, I was just going to fall asleep on the side of the trail and lose 10 hours, you know? So, yeah. I mean, amazing that you had like the ownership in that section and the accountability to stick to it and be motivated.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Jesse, knowing the course, he knew it was downhill. He knew it was easy running, and he was like, whoever's going to pace him, I think he told Mackenzie, like, whoever's going to pace him, he's just going to drop him. Like, he was more concerned about like me dropping my pacer, because like they have to finish with you, and that's a 40-mile section. He's like, none of those guys there are going to be able to run with him for the last 40 miles. I mean, Matt just did 30 with me over almost 10,000 feet of vert. And like all of my pacers are just like, other than Matt, are just like my buddies, like my friends, like they're not ultra runners. They're not even really trail runners. They're just like my homie. I mean, one of the guys, my friend Spooky Lukey, who I had just like, I met him on TikTok, and he like came out to the race and showed up and paced me for the Shea Mountain section. I like, but great dude. I mean, this kid's like my friend for life, but, yeah, my friend Mark Contreras, my other friend Billy Garner. I mean, these guys are just my friends, like dudes I hang out with and surf with. And yeah, I like it was like they almost like barely made these sections earlier in the race that I was running with them. So no one there would have been able to complete that last section with me.
Okay, I mean, and I might have missed this, but was there a moment where you passed Harry on trail, like you guys had communication, and if so, talk about that.
So the last time I had seen Harry was leaving Dry Valley aid station, where I had led for about 100 miles, and I got to the aid station first. I went to sleep, and then my crew woke me up, and they were like, "Hey, Harry's about to take off. He's getting ready. Like you should get ready as well." So I got my stuff together, and we pretty much left the aid station at the same time. And my buddy Mark, I was like, hey, I don't want to lead anymore. Like it's too stressful being in front, not having any information on how close the guy is behind me. So I was like, I just want to be behind him, because you're kind of at an advantage. You can come into an aid station and be like, oh, how long ago did so-and-so leave? And they're like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. You have a good idea of how far they are. But for so much of the race, I'd come into an aid station. I'd be like, hey, does anyone have service? Do you know how much of a lead I have? And no one knew. So it was kind of a relief not to be in the lead for that kind of middle 100 miles from around mile, what was drive out 140 to around 200. So like 60 miles, actually past 200, past 220. So for almost another 100 miles, Harry had the lead. And the next time I saw him, it was like I was less than a mile on the tracker I was from him, and I saw that he was stopped again, and I was like, okay, whatever lights I see up in the distance, it's got to be him. And I didn't know if he was with a pacer or not, and I was looking for lights, and then I kind of rounded this little turn, and there was someone just sitting on the side of the trail, and I came up to him and I was like, hey, Harry, you okay? And he was like, oh no, I'm Harry's pacer. He's sleeping right here in the bushes. And I was like, oh my bad. I'm trying to keep my voice down. I'm like, is he okay? Like, do you guys need anything? Like, and he just told me, he's like, yeah, we're good. Everything's okay. His body's just shutting down. Like, he just needs to sleep. And I was like, I wish I could give him a hug, man. Like, I wish I could have like seen him and just like given him a hug. Just because I have so much respect for the guy. And I just continued on after that, and it was pretty technical, like the last like 10 miles. So I slowed the pace down a bunch. I was like, there's no point in me like risking rolling an ankle or falling or getting hurt in just the last section. So slowed down a bunch and just kind of cruised it in for the last however many miles that was, 10 miles or so. Yeah.
Were you preparing for the possibility that a race like this that's multi-day could be so theatrical and like thrilling from a competitive standpoint in the last like 50 miles?
No, I had no. I mean, I saw it happen last year, but I was like, there's no way it's going to happen to me. And in the beginning of the race, like Harry took off like pretty hot, and like blew through the first aid station. Like, he got some distance on me, and for the first like 20 miles, he was like dropping me. I was like, dude, this is going to be a tough race if he's like going out this fast. And ended up catching up to him, and ran 20 miles with him, got to know him. We were talking. He's from Lithuania, which I didn't even know. I thought he was from Alaska, from Ultra Sign Up, but I have Lithuanian heritage. So we had like a kind of a cool connection there. We experienced like a super amazing sunset together. I was like, I got to know this guy, and the entire race, it was a battle. Like, I think maybe the most distance I had on him was like 6 miles, like around, what was that? Bridger Jack mile 96, and mile 96 was the first like info that I got on how far back he was from me. But he made up a bunch of that ground, and we were within a couple miles of each other for almost the entirety of the race. So, yeah, I mean, I had no idea that it was going to be this close or this much of a battle. And, like the story itself, like I was talking with Tyler, and I was like, dude, we couldn't have even like written a better story. Like, it's like, I just couldn't believe that it was real, like how it played out.
Total random side note, because you mentioned the Lithuanian heritage. So I'm watching this docu-series on Netflix about the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and the Lithuanian independence story is badass. Like, in the early 90s, it's crazy.
I don't even know anything about that. Yeah, maybe I should watch that. But I'm
a history nerd.
Lithuanian ultra runners. Maybe we got something. You know, maybe it's in our blood.
Okay, so a couple other things. I think we got to mention the heat, because I was following Andrew Glaze's race, and I mean, that guy is as tough as nails, right? Like, if there's a stamp you put on Andrew Glaze, it's like you can pretty much get through anything. And like, it got to him, right? Like, it was that oppressive. Yeah. It like there was like a medical emergency there. So, how come you didn't suffer the same fate? Like, was it as taxing on you too?
So, I think so me and Harry got lucky. Like, the leaders of the race, just how the race plays out, if you run fast enough, the first day is hot, no matter what. It's gonna be hot. You're gonna be sweating. You're gonna be losing a ton of fluids. But if you end up moving quick enough, you actually kind of experience the hotter sections of the race at night, and then the colder sections during the day. So Shea Mountain and the La Salles, me and Harry ended up doing in the daytime. So I wasn't cold at all the entire race, which a lot of people, Sarah had paced Sally the year before, and she was telling me, she was all, yeah, Shea Mountain at night, it was the coldest I've ever been in my entire life. So I was like, I had multiple layers. I had a puffy jacket. Like, I was prepared to deal with like really, really cold conditions, which we didn't end up experiencing. And then that kind of big middle section after Shea Mountain, that's like kind of more flat deserty section, we were at night again. So if you move quick enough, like around the 72 hour pace, like a 3-day pace, I think you can kind of hit the sections in a way where you don't experience the most extreme conditions. And Andy was moving a little bit slower, and I think he just got caught in that early desert section, and it just gets so hot. And I'm pretty sure he got heat stroke, and like, I mean, he was concerned for his life.
Yes.
I was talking to him, and like, that dude's got the craziest schedule in ultra running. I mean, runs more races, you know, he's a beast, he's a monster. And to see him like go out like that, and Moab's like got his number. I know he's attempted a couple times and not had success. So yeah, it's really, really hard for everyone.
There's the scene at the finish when you cross the finish line. It almost looks like you've just like run a PB in a 10K road race, right? Like you cross the finish line and then you just like instantly drop. Your partner's there, kind of like pulling you out of your pack.
Yeah.
Is there anything going on in your mind? Like, have you totally shut down, or are you starting to process what just happened?
It was so weird. Like I felt like, I mean, and this was for like days after the race. I felt like I was in this like weird disassociated like dream state where I was like almost having like an out of body experience, like seeing all these things happen to me, and just like the flood of everything just on social media, like thousands of messages, people reaching out to me, and I like saw all of this stuff. Thousands, and saw all these things happening to me, and I almost like saw them happening to me, but like couldn't really like believe that it was happening to me. I don't know, it was like I can't even really describe how I was feeling, but like when I crossed the finish line, I had nothing left in my tank. I was like running on fumes, and like I wish I could have like soaked it in a little bit more, or like felt like had a little bit more emotions, but it was like I was just cooked.
Huh.
Yeah.
I want to get more to like the few days processing after the fact, but like, will there, like at this particular distance, will there be a next one for you? Like, is this multi-day thing?
Yeah, I kind of have to. I mean, my if I'm able to pull off a win on my first one, I mean, I learned so much out there, and like I feel like there's so much opportunity in the 200-mile distance for like we're gonna see some crazy stuff in our lifetime. Like I mean, Moab, like I know 60 hours is out there. Like I finished 69 hours, but I feel like there's like sub 6. Like I think the previous course records on the old course are eventually going to be broken. Like there's so much room for improvement. And yeah, I was talking to Jamil at Saddles before the race, and I was like, and he knew I was running Moab, and I was like, but Cocodona is on my bucket list.
Dude, hop in next year.
Yeah, I told him we'll see how Moab goes, and I mean, at this point, I kind of have to, you know.
Dude,
I feel like,
love it.
Yeah.
Where are for you personally? Where are the opportunities to shave time?
So I dealt with like a ton of like foot and like chafing issues. Like I feel like I was so uncomfortable, and I ended up like moving so slow for a lot of the race, just like dealing with like just body stuff. Like I could have taken way better care of myself. And then like just fueling, like coming into the aid stations, like I could have eaten way more food. I honestly could have slept less. I feel like there was just like so many aspects where like I could have shaved a little bit of time off each thing, and been able to and even just like moving through the La Salle section, like that 15 miles, I think it took me and Matt like almost 15 hours, which is like so slow and so crazy. Jeff Browning and Sarah, I think their split on that section was like 12 hours or something. Like they moved like 3 hours faster than us. So, yeah, I just feel like Moab is just such a runnable course. And there's, you know, I made some mistakes with choosing my shoes. There was just like, I was learning stuff on the fly. And if I were to go back, if I ever do go back, I just know there's like a lot of stuff that I could do differently and improve on and just run a much better race.
How about stoppage time at aid? Like you did mention you slept a lot, but then you also mentioned there was like some 1 minute aid stations in there.
Yeah.
What like your total time elapsed versus running was?
I was bummed. My watch died at 35 hours, and then I tried charging it, and then it died again. So I don't really have a lot of data, which I'm obsessed with data. So I'm like just so bummed that I don't have the entire route
Wow.
saved on my watch. But I think on the spot tracker, I think my stoppage time was like 14 hours,
Oh
but
man.
I only had an hour and a half total of sleep time.
And for me at Cocodona, it was like 7 hours of stoppage time, and I slept like 35 minutes. And so I was telling my partner, I was like, I could sleep more next year and be more efficient at 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So there's like not even necessarily the worst trade-offs you have to make in being more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
All right, how are you different after the fact? Like now that you've had like a few more days to process, do you feel like there's been like this like radical shift, or is it just like I'm the same person, I just got beat up?
I mean, I still feel like I'm the same person, but there's just been like this wave of just messages from people on social media. I mean, I gained a crazy amount of followers. Just like the support from all my friends, and like I had like people started like I had like Timothy Olsen follow me. I'm like, what the fuck? Like there's like all these like famous like people and trail runners, and I'm like on the phone with Cam Haynes and talking to him, and I'm like, this is like crazy. But at the same time, I'm like, the next day, like still doing my run streak. I don't know if I'm a streak runner, but yeah. The next day I like still do my little 1 mile run, and yeah, I mean, we'll see what comes of it. I'm a lot of people have reached out to me, and there could be some cool opportunities for me in the future, just with brands and stuff. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but it's definitely set some things in motion, and my life has definitely changed from it for sure.
That is one thing I love to see. And this is something and again, I don't really know any of the details, especially in the last 3 weeks, but I get the sense that after Tara Dower set that record on the Appalachian Trail, that like her life, at least materially, has changed significantly. Mm-hmm. It's cool to see that you're getting like thousands of messages, all sorts of key people in the sport are following you. Maybe there's a new partnership out. Like that's like just from a 3-day, I shouldn't say just, but like from a great performance at a single race. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, and I'm super grateful, and yeah, it's like I kind of like feel like I have imposter syndrome or something. Like I don't deserve all of this, but I put in the work, man. I had a really, really good year. I trained my ass off, and I dug really deep for this race that was just like seemed impossible, and yeah, I just like I'm doing everything I can. Like this last year, I've really like focused on social media and like trying to tell my story and share myself with everyone. And it's like it's nerve-wracking. Like I'm bringing a film crew with me, and like if I blow up and don't finish the race, like that's like what a bad look. How embarrassing, Yeah. But and that's just, I mean, that's just like stuff that weighs on me. I mean, I don't know. I feel super grateful and fortunate that I even have a story to share. And yeah, I'm just like, I've just been focusing on just trying to do everything I can to tell cool stories and make cool content and do the dance. Like to make a living in ultra running, it's almost like you got to be the most elite of the elite, or you got to kind of take this like alternate content creator, like run influencer route, which like I don't necessarily want to do. Like I want to be a professional athlete. Like I want to win races. Like I just want to focus on racing. But there's this whole other aspect. If you want to like make this a full-time thing, you gotta do the dance on social media. You gotta do Instagram. You gotta do TikTok. You gotta do YouTube. And it's just been tough trying to like juggle all of those things and also train at the highest level, like, and work a full-time job. It's just a lot. Yeah.
I mean, I would even argue there's a middle ground there, though, and I think people like you are filling it, which is people that are competing at the high end of the sport, like you winning a race like Moab, and then also either telling the story yourself or making sure that there are people around you to tell it. Like I know, one of the reasons I was able to find out about your channel is the fact that you're you're open, like you share. And
Yeah.
I'm sure there are other great people with stories to share that haven't done that work. So, I mean, I salute it.
Yeah, I mean, I just always wished, like, all of these races that I do, I go on YouTube and I do some research. And Jeff actually did a good job last year of documenting his race. But like at TDS, I was trying to find like something about TDS where I could just like learn about the course, and there was like almost nothing about it. And like so many people could do, like, I mean, make amazing content, just super informative stuff, or just like cool things to watch about these races. So yeah, I hope in the future, like, a lot of people kind of like do what I'm doing and just start documenting all this stuff. And I think there's a big market for it.
Is the film that's going to come out, is it a Satisfy film? Is it a different film? Like, is it just you? When's it coming out?
So like almost a year ago, Tyler Wolter, shout out Tyler, he reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey, I saw you signed up for Moab. Like, do you want to do something surrounding Moab?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure." Like, kind of blown away. Like, dude, this like random like filmmaker guy is like reaching out to me and like wants to like make a movie. And I was like, "Yeah, for sure." And just over the last year, we've been just with our own money, scraping up money for flights. His media partner, Cole Becker, shout out Cole. I mean, an amazing cinematographer. They work for a production company, so they were able to like get some like really insane camera gear that we ended up using in multiple shit. I mean, they came down, they stayed at my house. Like, we pretty much made this thing happen with almost a zero budget, and we're putting it together. And I don't know exactly what we're going to do with it or what the distribution is going to be like, but I think eventually it'll probably end up living on YouTube somewhere. But yeah, I mean, Tyler wants to like show it at film festivals. Like, it's going to be a really incredible film. Like, just, I mean, if you go check out his work, I mean, we posted a little teaser on my Instagram, and I mean, their footage is just beautiful. So yeah, I'm like super excited to see what they come up with.
I mean, this is just off the top of the dome, and it's just based on the little bit I know of YouTube, but especially for a race like Moab. And I feel like Moab is one of, like, when I talk to people that are not trail runners and they know a little bit about just like ultra endurance, they know three things in America. They know Barkley, they know the AT, and they know the Moab 240. And so I say that because I think a film about Moab is one of those things that could break through the bubble, and you could be talking about multiple hundreds of thousands of views. And dude, the production might pay for itself in YouTube ad revenue.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we're thinking. And I mean, I come from a apparel design background. Like, I used to print t-shirts. So I like just alone, like making some merch and selling merch, just tees and hats. I was like, we could cover just what we've spent out of pocket just with merch. So, I mean, we're gonna do some premieres. I'm gonna make some cool merch that we'll be selling. And yeah, who knows who might pick it up. I mean, they got connections in the film industry, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But we're gonna shop it around and see what we can do. But yeah, I mean, like, Moab's just like one of those things in an ultra running culture that like people know about. I mean, partly from like dudes like David Goggins or Cam Haynes or like Courtney, like winning it outright.
Yeah.
It's just kind of become this race that people know. But I don't think anyone's like really done a film that like encapsulates like the entirety of Moab, you know, or maybe people have, and I just haven't seen them. But
hey, bottom line, there's massive opportunity and, like you said, massive demand. I mean, I can't unshake it from my head that there's all these amazing races like TDS that don't have a solid library of referential content, you know?
Yeah, and that's a UTMB race. Like, you would think there's something out there, but Sage had like some video that was, I didn't learn anything from the course really.
Just thinking about being ready for the moment, like, obviously, you know, things don't happen by accident, right? Like, I mean, yes, there are things that can happen mid-race where it's like, that's a good break, but you got to be ready for the moment, right? And I was asking Matt Shapiro about you, like, right when that video of you doing the kickflip went in my algorithm, and he like unprompted, he told me that you are one of the most driven and disciplined people he's ever met. And that's saying a lot, because Matt, Matt knows a lot of people that fit that mold. So like when you think about your really fast trajectory in the sport, how does that personality or set of values, how does it show itself in your day-to-day life or in your prep for the stuff like this?
Well, I think to sum it up, I'm just like an obsessive person. I have a really addictive personality, and just part of my personal story, I struggled with drug addiction and alcoholism for a long time, and I like I was just like a fucking piece of shit for so long, and I ended up I just like, and in the Beach Kid film, I talk about like I used to just give up on everything. Like I had no drive, I had no discipline. Before I got sober, it was like every day of my life felt like the worst day of my life. And the first like real success that I had, or like the first like signs of me like starting to turn my life around was getting sober, and that was like the first like win that I really had. And I had gotten sober, and I was able to stay sober for like, a couple months and then a couple years. And it was like multiple years into sobriety that I ended up finding running. And it was just by accident. I had a couple injuries that I had gotten skating this skate park at my work. And I was like, dude, I'm super out of shape. I had a roommate at the time who was just like a big gym freak, and he just started taking me to the gym, and I started doing cardio machines and just ended up like running on the treadmill, and then eventually just moved to the road. And just that same like obsessive, addicted thing that I have in my head that makes me like keeps me fucked up on drugs was what was like driving me to like get so fall in love with running like so deeply. And it was just like a pretty quick progression. Like I started running, and I started out slow. Like I remember that one of the first runs I ran, I could barely run 2 miles on the pavement. I was like, dude, this is so hard, but like I feel like I can like push myself. And I started making goals and like achievable goals, and I started hitting those goals. And I mean, it was even just as small as like, oh, my longest run was 5 miles yesterday. Like maybe I can run 6 in next week when I'm like not so sore that I can't run. So I like just ended up pushing myself, and like started gaining momentum, started getting better, started getting faster. And one day I like ran like 10 miles, and I was like, dude, that's almost a half marathon. Like maybe I could sign up for a marathon. And ended up signing for a marathon, and I was shooting for like 4 hours, and I ran like a 3:27, and I was like, holy shit, like I'm like actually like maybe kind of good at this running thing. And the rest is kind of history. I mean, one marathon leads to another marathon, leads to another marathon, leads to running ultras. And like every single race that I did and I signed up for, I mean, to this day, I've like exceeded my expectations. Like I always have like a pretty conservative idea of like maybe time or placement, and it's like almost every single race I exceed my expectations. And it's all because I'm consistent, I put in the work. And it was like a lot of these principles that I had learned from like 12-step programs and getting sober, and just like doing what I need to do on a daily basis to like be right with the world. It was like I was able to apply a lot of these things to running. And it was like as soon as I started like having success and progressing with running, it was like I started progressing in all other aspects of my life, and I started getting better jobs and getting promoted at work, and my relationships with my friends were blossoming. I meet this girl, like all of these things just like started coming together. And it was like, I don't know, it's just like crazy that this like weird little running thing could have like such a profound impact on my life.
Just trying to interpret all that, it seems like you're really impatient about action, but you're patient with results.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Interesting. And it's also amazing to me that like this addictive personality can simultaneously be capable of helping you win a race like Moab, but it can also put you in a position where like you're not sure if you're going to make it past 30. Like just wielding that personality type in the correct direction, like the stakes there is wild to me.
Yeah, and I truly believe that like this what is my what can be seen as like a curse is like kind of my greatest strength, and can be harnessed. And yeah, in my early 20s, like I was like really, really fucked up. I had a problem with opiates. I mean, I had a couple overdoses that were like, had me really close to, like, I shouldn't be alive. My life was saved by my sister and my best friend. I was locked in the bathroom, and like, they got to me and were able to bring me back. But yeah, I mean, every day I'm just like, feel like lucky to be here. And I've had a ton of friends die from addiction and from, the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction. And it runs in my family as well. So, yeah, I'm just super, super grateful that I was able to like get out of that. And, yeah, running just like filled this like void that I had, like almost this thing that like drugs and alcohol had filled for so long, like this thing that I was like desperately missing spiritually. I can't even like tell you what it was, but yeah, it was like running was like my new drug,
On the topic of substance abuse, I'm so fascinated when you think about the early stages of getting out of it. What are some of those like really critical good decisions that you make?
Yeah, I mean, like for one, it was I was in jail when I first got sober. I mean, the day I got sober was the day that I got arrested, just the last time I got arrested. And I just knew that it was maybe my only opportunity to get sober. And I couldn't make any decisions for myself. So I was like, this is maybe my one and only chance. And, I was in jail, so it was kind of easy I mean, people, you can still get fucked up in jail. There's drugs in there, but I was like, I'm just gonna be uncomfortable for however long this takes me to detox. And when I got out, I just like got super involved in the 12 step program, and started going to meetings a lot, and kind of just found this new group of people and this new support system that I just surrounded myself with these people. And yeah, I was just hung on for dear life, and was able to like just not even entertain any of the stuff that I was doing before, or hang out with the shady people that I was hanging out with. And yeah, just like really made a decision to change my life. And I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm dying. And yeah, it was just, yeah. And I grew up in the program. I like learned how to be a man. I learned how to live my life. I mean, I had never really even had a job at that point. And I mean, it was like people in these meetings that like, I mean, like I never really had like a father figure, and like these like men were like showing me like, hey, this is what we do around here. And I just like, it was like monkey see, monkey do. I just like kind of listened and like followed these dudes. And yeah, my life just slowly got better. And I just stuck around, and, it went from there.
Man, I'm so impressed. Like, just thinking back to the story you told about like, just like forgetting about Pacers, the last 30, 40 miles of Moab, like that mentality and follow through makes so much more sense when you tell the story of like, yeah, I just like stared detox in the face and like put up with the pain for as long as it, like that is badass.
Yeah. And like, maybe it's a little bit harder for me to see those connections, but yeah, I mean, it was like, there's definitely things that I learned along the way. And like, I had to do a lot of this stuff for myself. And I know I'm self-sufficient, and I know I'm capable. And like in the moment, it was the right decision. And like, I didn't even make that decision. It was like Jesse and Mackenzie had made that decision for me. It was almost like when you, on your podcast with Tara's crew chief, it was like, she had exported her brain to these people. Like it would like at that point in the race, like I couldn't even really think for myself. It was almost like they were making the decisions for me, which like, I mean, thank God that was the right decision. But yeah, it was just, it all just like kind of worked out just miraculously. Yeah.
I'm always trying to think about people in the audience that are resonating at any given moment. And I know personally in my own family, this resonates. Like I said, I also come from a family with like a background abusing alcohol and stuff like that. have people been able, because you've been open, like have people kind of turned to you and looked for advice? And is that something you welcome? Or, you know, for people that are listening to your story, how do you would kind of advise them to proceed if they're in like a similar predicament?
Yeah, I mean, dude, it like you would be blown away. Like there's honestly like so many people that reach out to me, and like I wish I had the capacity to like reach out to all these people and talk to all of these people, but just in my day-to-day life, like I always am vocal about like if anyone knows me personally and is struggling with addiction or substance abuse, like I'm an open book and I'm willing to help anyone. And there's some people, maybe even people that we've talked about in this podcast, that have had issues with drinking and drugs, and they've reached out to me, and I don't want to like put them on blast or anything, but I've helped like a lot of people out, and I always try to just be helpful, and if someone's struggling, just offer my knowledge and advice. And I mean, if you think you have a problem, like even if you just have a desire to stop, then you probably would benefit from quitting the booze, or laying off the weed, or partying a little bit less. But yeah, I like there's always a solution. And even when you're just so deep in it, like I thought there was no way I was ever going to be able to get sober, and there is, you know, there's a lot of resources out there and a lot of people that are willing to help.
Well, man, I'm grateful you're here.
Yeah.
And by the way, like, are you okay if we go a little bit longer? I have a lot more questions.
Of course. Yeah.
Switching topics a little bit, you've got the surfing and the skating history too, and you kind of touched on them a little bit. But did those aspects of your life, did they just get less interesting? Was it the physical toll? Like, why? Where is that break? Like, why did that breaking point happen? Besides,
yeah, like, so when I was first starting to run, like I kind of, after those injuries, I kind of like gave up on skating. Like I'll roll around and mess around on flat ground, but I'm not like going to the skate park anymore. It's just like, it's too much of a liability. Like I can't get hurt. Like I can't like jump down a set of stairs and just like hit the ground and get up and not be hurt. Like when you turn 30 and you're skating, you fall and everything seems to break. So I kind of gave up on like try hard skating a while ago, but I always continue to surf. I live like probably 2 miles from the beach. So I mean, not lately, but in my early running career, I was like still pretty consistent, surfing a bunch. I always went on surf trips. I mean, I went on a trip in May. I try to go on like one big surf trip a year, and that's like usually the only time during the year that I surf. But yeah, it's just running. I've just been all in with running, that it's just taken up like all of my free time. And I'm just like so obsessed and dedicated to training that it's, I mean, like during my block leading into TDS, like I was doing 3 a days. Like I had like, I think I had like a 27 or a 28 hour training week one week. And when you're training that much, there's like literally no time to do anything else. And like, I can get hurt surfing too. Like there was, before I ran LA Marathon one year, what was that, like 2020? I was surfing with my buddy like maybe a month and a half before the race, and I tweaked my toe. Like I was just like jumping off my board and bent my big toe sideways, and I couldn't put a shoe on for like 2.5 weeks, and it just like blew like a big like kind of the most critical part of my my training block. So I kind of am just like careful with surf. Like I don't want to risk anything with running. So it's like, I kind of just only run now, which is a little disappointing, but whatever.
I grew up not surfing, but paddle surfing in Maine. I got an uncle up in Nova Scotia that surfs too. So like,
so does he do prone paddling or stand up paddling?
Both.
Oh, sick.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually has a store as well. South Portland, Maine. But yeah, like my only touch with the sport now is just I get Surfer's Journal, and I'm not even a surfer. Yeah. I love that. And I grew up like idolizing like Andy Irons, rest in peace, Irons, like that whole crew. Yeah, I think it's a cool world. And I guess like since you've gotten so steeped in running, have you ever had the chance to kind of compare and contrast those two cultures? Like, are there parts of skating and surfing that like culturally you've kind of said farewell to, or are there similarities across the domains?
Well, I think nowadays, and like especially with brands like Satisfy, like you're getting a lot of this like skate surf culture crossover into running. Like our generation, like we grew up like playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and like I mean I idolized Kelly Slater, and like it was like such a big part of our generation, like growing up just like with TV and early internet. And I think people our age, there's just like we're getting older, and a lot of people just like the boom in running, and especially trail running, just even after COVID. I think you're just like getting a lot of these people that were like maybe grew up in the surfer skate culture that are like into running now and think it's cool. And yeah, I mean there's even like some cool like professional skaters and surfers that are like getting into running. Like Riley Hawk is
Yeah.
kind of become like a friend of mine on the internet, and yeah, he's into running, he's into doing triathlons, and it's like it's just so cool to see. Like I mean he's a pro skater, he's Tony Hawk's kid, and like he's into running. Like running is cool now somehow. And just like the act of running, I mean to me there's a lot of parallels with surfing. I mean you're traveling over the surface of the earth, and you're like doing this like dance with nature. I don't know, it's like surfing and trail running are both like very spiritual activities for me, and they're like very meditative, like kind of in their own unique way. But yeah, and just like I mean there's parallels with skating and trail running. I mean skating is like one of these things where you have to, like, if you want to get good, you have to be so dedicated, and you have to try things over and over and over. And like, it's almost like the consistency with running. Like the only way you're going to get real or significant results is to just be super consistent with it and stick it out and like train your ass off. And I mean, it takes so long to be able to like learn how to do a kickflip or learn how to do a 360 flip. Like these things take super like a really long time. You're not going to learn them overnight. And it's like kind of the same with running. Like if you want to get good at running, it's going to take years of serious work to actually get to like a high level.
You mentioned Satisfy, and so you feel like if the running community wanted to have a reference point into surf or skate, Satisfy is doing the best job of like creating that kind of portal.
Yeah, like Satisfy is a skate company that makes running apparel. Like that's like pretty much what they are, you know?
I actually, by the way, because I have a bunch of Satisfy questions, I wrote down their brand manifesto because I think it's one of the coolest manifestos I've ever seen. And I'm not going to read it all, but the first 3 sentences. In the 1970s, a new generation picked up running as a rebellious anti-establishment act. They were chasing the high. Inspired by this ideal of freedom, Satisfy was founded in pursuit of that high. That's awesome. That's punk.
Yeah, that's punk rock, that's skateboarding, that's surfing. It's like, it's the same thing, man.
How'd you get connected with them?
So I just like, I reached out to them. They were, they had posted something on Instagram, like they were looking for models for something in New York. And I just DM'd the account page, and I was like, hey, I don't live in New York, but if you guys end up doing anything like near LA or during LA Marathon, like just let me know. I'm like super down. I'm a fan of the brand. I love what you guys are doing. And like maybe 6 months later, they were coming out to LA, and we got connected again, and I ended up doing a photo and video shoot for I think it was called the Running Technology capsule, and that was in early 2020, so right before the pandemic. And I just like stayed connected with them, and they started sending me free gear, and I ended up getting put on like they had this like running cult member team, which was like kind of like an amateur team of like run influencer type people. And then I just been friends with them, like Brees and Tommy and Daniel and all these Logan, all these guys that, I mean, we're just like a big family, and I love all these guys. And I mean, they, lucky enough for me, I was just like a fan of Satisfy, and got connected with them, and super great. And then eventually they ended up bringing me on as a pro athlete. But yeah, I just feel like I got lucky, you know?
I've had a couple touch points that impressed me. I mean, you mentioned Fain Ranch earlier. That's one of the coolest aid stations in any ultra across the world. Like what Satisfy does with that aid station is incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, it's almost like anything they do. Like it's all like Brees' genius. I mean, that along with, I mean, countless things. I mean, he's just the brain, Satisfy is just his brainchild. And yeah, just the attention to detail with everything they do is just amazing. Yeah.
And
Just
to add
so
to
cool.
that, and again, I was late to the game on knowing and appreciating Mike Versteeg. Like, he got me inspired. He kind of put Cocodona in my mind, and it was so cool after the fact to like see how his race went down. We had him on the pod, and I got to know him better. He's incredible. So
Yeah.
just like, even just like the way Bryce has curated the team, you included, it's just in the range, like you, Sarah O, Andrew Glaze, like all fit the mold, but so different at the same time.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's just, again, touching on Brees' genius. I mean, we're the team of people, like I love all of these guys. And it's been like super cool, like getting to know Mike. And he at Saddles, he gave me a little bit of advice on Moab. And I I actually have this written down here. So right just before TDS, I was hanging out at the chalet, and he had flown in and he was hanging with us. And he just told me, he was like, "Hey dude, just run it as fast as you can." And like, the advice for a race, like what better advice? And obviously he's not saying like just go out as fast as you can and blow up, but like just do your best. Just run the race as fast as you can. Like that's all you can do, you know? But yeah, it's just been really cool, like getting to know him and just everyone on the team, Jakob and Steen and Matt Lenahan. I mean, all these guys are just like such cool people. I mean, obviously Logan, Sarah, Janelle. Not a lot of people know about Janelle, but she's like a monster short distance trail runner. Yeah, I mean, everyone's just like, I just feel like so grateful to know these people, and like the entire team, all the designers, all the developers. Like, we went to Paris just before UTMB and met with everyone, and just they showed us everything they're doing. And I'm just sitting there dumbfounded. Like, how did I like stumble into this, you know?
Mike has so many of these like straightforwardly profound statements. Like,
Yeah.
Of course I'm going to run as fast as that, but like
That
at the same time,
it
like seeps in. It seeps in somehow. You're like, of course, yeah.
He's a philosopher, man. Like Mike's the man, dude. He's just so cool, man. I love that guy.
And then you're in Apparel, but you're still touching the surf industry because you're working at, is it Hurley in Apparel design?
Yeah.
Okay. So how'd you get the start in design?
So I pretty much started at the company just like sweeping floors. I had met this guy who later had become my friend, and I had like just gotten sober, and then he ended up just like showing up to these AA meetings, and we just like became super tight and super close. And I was working this like medical billing job, just this kind of whatever get well job. Like, I just gotten sober. A family friend was just helping me out, paying me minimum wage. It was nothing. But I met this guy who was working at Hurley, and he was like, "Hey, just like, you should just like cruise over here and like help me like print these t-shirts or print these posters." And like, I'd work my job and I'd get off and I'd just go hang out with this guy and my friend JP, and we would just like spend all nighters just at the Hurley campus. And at the time it was the Nike surf category. So we were I like just started helping him out. He taught me a bunch of art stuff, taught me how to print t-shirts, taught me how to cut linoleum prints. We did a ton of printmaking. And one thing led to another. And I ended up like just getting a job there, like working in there was this print shop, and I got this job doing art, working in the print shop. And then that led to doing these marketing activations and printing all these posters for retail stores. And I was doing Nike events, like printing t-shirts live at Nike events. And I just did so many different things at the company. I was like modeling for them too. So they would use me in like catalogs and photo shoots. And eventually someone on the graphic design team was like, "Hey, I want you to, like, I know you know how to like print t-shirts. I know you have a good eye. Like, why don't you work for me and just learn the computer programs, learn Photoshop and Illustrator. Like, I'll sit you next to the most experienced guy. Like, any questions that you have, just ask him and he'll teach you." And learn graphic design. And I just feel like I got super lucky that like these people took a chance with me. And I was like finally like had a real job. You know, I'm working as a graphic designer for this like big surf company, and did that for quite a few years, and then transitioned to apparel design and just learned a whole new set of skills. And yeah, I always like, I don't know, I feel like I'm a good learner. I always try to remain be teachable. Yeah, and I've just progressed, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Still there.
Sometimes it's luck, but like again, just observing like what you've been saying, I actually think it's rare to come across someone that is unfazed about starting at the ground floor and anything. And like you talk about doing it with Sobriety, doing it at Hurley, doing it running. Like I think a lot of people will never start because of just it's so overwhelming to think about what is ahead.
Yeah,
And that doesn't seem to bother
I just
you at
had no other option. You know, it was like it was only uphill from where I was at. I mean, I had nothing. I had nothing going on. I was going nowhere fast. You know, and
so
yeah,
since you have this expertise and interest in apparel design now, like it must be difficult to be, and maybe not, but like I would imagine it's difficult to be having support from a company when maybe you could be doing that stuff yourself, right? Like, do you want to start an apparel company one day? Or I don't like, it seems like this is such a cool skill to have in a area of our sport that like could continue to get more innovation.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm like looking forward to I mean, even just making merch for this film I'm going to do. Like I haven't like designed a t-shirt in a long time. I haven't printed a t-shirt in a long time, so I'm like kind of looking forward to just like making my own merch. But yeah, I mean, I've always thought of like starting a clothing brand, but like the undertaking of building a brand is like a whole nother thing. And yeah, I don't know, maybe one day.
Yeah. What do you like about Hurley? Like currently, like what's exciting you?
It's close to my house. I feel like I have a unique just setup that where I'm able to run as much as I do. Like I run before work. It's a pretty chill work environment. So like no one's really on your ass about getting there right at 8 a.m. Like, you know, it's pretty lax. Like as long as you get all your work done, people for the most part don't really care what you're doing. Like on my lunch break, like if I run at lunch and show up, like if I take an hour 15 lunch, like no one's going to say anything. I've worked there for a long time. I have a bunch of friends that work there. I just like really love everybody that I work with. We get to do cool stuff. I mean, I work with really talented people. I'm like still learning things. I'm constantly learning. So, yeah, I don't know, just kind of all those things it's just, I feel like I don't know if I would be able to do what I do if I worked anywhere else, you know?
I got to make sure I ask you about the van too. I was watching the Ray Lakes vlog that you made, and there's that scene where like I think your partner has the camera, and you're just trying to cool down the van, like perch on the side of it, and then you're like, I'm gonna go just do a cold plunge because this like tell me about because the van looks vintage.
Yeah, the van's a 1988 Ford Club Wagon XL. It's just a junker. I bought it off my buddy for like $3,500. He just couldn't deal with it anymore. It was like sitting in front of his house for months, and I've just put a bunch of work into this thing, and it's actually running good now. But I mean, with any old car, it's just a ton of problems, and I like it doesn't even have AC. But I love driving it to the mountains and camping out of it. Like I took 2 rows of seats out and built a bed in the back. I mean, it's like not a camper van at all. It's just like the most primitive van setup. But me and Mackenzie like taking it to the Sierras, and that specific trip, it was like there was a heat wave going on. It was like 114 degrees driving through Inyo Kern, and I think as soon as I just like started heading up the mountain, like it just overworked the engine and just it didn't blow up, but overheated, and it ended up being fine. We just needed to wait for it to cool down. But it's it's my old unreliable van. I call it Big Blue. But
how many gallon tank?
So it actually has 2 gas tanks. I think it has like a 20-gallon tank and like a 15-gallon tank. So it costs like, I mean, when gas prices are super steep here in California, it can almost cost me like almost $200 to fill the thing up. And it only gets like 9 miles of the gallon. So it's like not an economical vehicle, but it's fun to drive.
Yeah.
And I've like, I lived in this van in my buddy's driveway like a year ago. I was just like trying to save money, and I was like, screw paying rent, and I had to move out of my last house, and I pretty much just like parked it in his driveway and lived there for 6 months. I think I did almost a year living out of the van. I just wanted to try it out, but I have this like almost like sentimental connection with this van. I've been thinking about maybe upgrading the van, but kind of having a hard time like thinking about getting rid of it.
Has Mike Versteeg told you about how he didn't pay rent for 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, he's never told me personally, but I heard it on your podcast. I mean, crazy,
amazing. I mean, in addition to being a philosopher, he's extremely resourceful.
Yeah, I mean, and like, I don't know if you've seen his house, but like the first time I went there, it was like he was building all kinds of stuff, and then like 6 or 9 months later, I showed up and there was like a skateboard ramp in the backyard, and the back garage shed thing is all like built out and nice, and his house is coming along, and I'm like, dude, this guy's like building a homestead here, you know?
Yeah. I forgot to ask you this earlier because you were like, I was reminded because you were talking about TDS and not having the resources there to kind of like identify with the race prepare. When you were coming up in the sport, who were you inspired by, or like who was catching your attention? Could be Versteeg.
Yeah. I think it was just like people like famous people like David Goggins or like Courtney Dauwalter. Honestly, like one of the first ultra runners I ever found out about was Dylan Bowman. I like from back in the day, I used to for my birthdays from like 27 to 30, I would run however many miles my birthday was, and on my 30th birthday, I was like, I want to do like a big, like longer, cool run, like some ultra route somewhere. So I mean, here in Southern California, I was like, where's like a cool like national park, like kind of scenic place that I can run, and I found this route in Joshua Tree, and I was just like curious as to like what the record on it was. And I found this dude, Dylan Bowman, and he actually had a YouTube video of him setting the FKT. And I was like, holy shit, this dude's like sponsored by Red Bull. Like he's got a Red Bull hat on. Like it's like usually like surfers and skaters and BMX people like, oh, this is like, I don't know, this guy's like cool. I can kind of like relate to this guy, you know? And yeah, just people like that, you know? And then yeah, it was honestly like I don't even know, like, and then like learning about like Jim and Killian, all these like super elite guys later on, where I was like, oh, these are like the cream of the crop type guys, you know?
Yeah, I think he has the Backbone FKT video is sick.
Yeah, and Jesse actually paced him during part of the Backbone. I think Dylan like dropped Jesse pretty early on, but yeah, just cool connection there too.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, dude, it's been a joy to get to know you and chat here. Appreciate the time. I'm just thinking about what we've covered, like Satisfy, your background, Moab. Is there anything that we didn't touch on, like especially with Moab, that we should cover before we go?
I don't think so.
I love the 200-mile scene. It's so
I do too.
Glad you're in it. You know, it's
so cool, man. Like I've just been a fan of the sport for a long time now, and like for some reason I was just drawn to the 200s. Like it's the most extreme form of ultra running, like to me, in my opinion. And just like getting to know like dudes like Jeff Brown, like Jeff like ran me in at Moab. It was like so cool. It was like a year ago I was watching him run Jesse into the finish line, and then I'm coming into the finish line and Jeff's right there next. It was almost like I was just watching him do it with Jesse, and it was like just getting to meet all these cool people. And Sarah Ostaszewski, I want to shout her out. Like she absolutely crushed Moab, 5th overall, course record for women. I mean, teammate of mine. It was just like so cool. Me and her both Satisfy athletes, like winning the race together. I mean, just amazing. Her boyfriend Kyle's the man. I mean, just another super elite 200-mile, like ultra distance 200-mile specialist. I mean, just getting to meet all these people and like become immersed in the scene is just like so cool, man. Like I followed along for so long and was always so intrigued, and I'm like doing it now, and I feel like I'm in it, and I feel welcomed by everyone, and just super grateful. Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. We'll make sure to link to everything we referenced in the show notes, and yeah, just appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Finn.